In this premiere episode of Broker Breakdown, we're talking to the one and only Keri Shull about some of the things that she does to recruit and hire the best people in town, some of the mistakes that she maybe wishes she could go back and do over, and all the different ways that she's utilized video to grow her business to over $300 million a year. I know I learned a ton from this conversation, and I'm sure you will too. Let's go ahead and check it out. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get into talking all about video, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction and tell us how you got into the real estate business in the first place?
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Nick. I am thrilled to be here. And my entry into the real estate business was in new construction in 2005. And then actually 2003. 2008, I got into the resale industry, and I decided really quickly that I wanted to be surrounded by people that I got to pick to be in business with and to scale a team. But 2008 was an interesting time to get in, right?
Yeah, no. So tell us about that. I mean, getting into that at that point must have been was it before everything fell apart that you decided to do it, or was there a reason for tying it to that moment?
So what's funny, my mentor, who was my boss at the time when I was selling new homes, I was actually managing the sales of multiple developments in the DC Metro. She came to me and she said, I have an investor, he has $50 million, and he wants to buy bulk short sales and foreclosures, and I'll split everything with you. And I started doing the math on my calculator. This is going to age me. At the time, it was a calculator because my phone did not have a calculator on it. And it was a lot of money. And so I left my very cushy job where we were selling a ton of real estate. And 3 weeks later, the investor that had the $50 million bought a hotel. And I woke up one morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like a real estate agent. Like, I don't have an investor client. I don't have any clients, in fact, and I need to go build a business. So I got in at, I think, an ideal time to be building a business because I had to kind of experience the struggle a little bit and like grind it out and get some clients and figure my stuff out. And I was pretty isolated. So there wasn't a lot of education at that point. And for me, like what you guys are doing is amazing because for real estate brokers, for real estate team leaders, for really highly ambitious real estate agents, they can go out and learn from people and you're helping them compress time to learn the lessons faster, right? For me at that point, I would be walking in circles around the floor of my brokerage just trying to get a question answered because there was no one there to support me. So that's why I'm really passionate about doing things like this and helping agents to learn how to grow. And I think what you guys are doing is amazing too.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. And I think this is, it's really interesting that to be in that situation, right, and to be sort of forced to face the music a little bit and just go straight into it. And then to see where you are at this point with your business and your team and everything that you've done in the meantime, so to speak. So I want to talk about that growth a little bit. When you first got started, like, did you expect to end up with this mega team and being known all across the country, or was that something that kind of evolved as the business grew?
So in 2008, I would say no, but going to a live real estate event changed my life. And from the moment I saw that other people were doing it, 100% I knew I would do it. Like I had no question in my mind. I made a decision the moment I saw, wow, if other people could do this, I said to myself, if they can do it, I can do it. So it was social proof. And I knew that I would scale a team because I'm a really fast executor. And when I hear a good idea, I take action. And so I knew that I would network with the people who are doing amazing things, and I would implement them quickly. The light bulb moment for me, it was a Craig Proctor event in 2010, and I left the event and said, I'm going to hire a team and I'm going to grow this thing. And I think 6 months later, I hired 3 ISAs because I knew very clearly what my strengths and weaknesses were. And once I saw other people who had teams of ISAs, I'm like, they have 1 ISA, like I'm gonna have 3.
Well, so you get started with these ISAs. I mean, why have 3? I got to start there because I love the attitude of just go big or go home. You seem to know right off the bat you could use three of them. Was it just that you're already doing so much business, or was that the vision sort of that clear that you were like, let's just move as fast as we can here?
No, so what I heard is that the ISA position is the hardest to hire for,
Hmm.
and that 50% of the people that you hire won't make it. And I trusted my ability to generate leads and to scale the business. And I knew that I was willing to go big and like eat ramen noodles if I had to, right? But I wasn't willing to take the time to hire somebody and see if it worked, hire the next person and see if it worked. So I figured if the odds are 50-50, if I hire two people, I'm going to hire three and then I'm pretty well set. And it worked out well because one of them ended up breaking up with her boyfriend and moving out of the state, right? So I couldn't control that. That was like a fluke situation unless I found another boyfriend for her faster, which I didn't pull off. One of them ended up staying with me for about a year, and one moved into a different role on the team.
Hmm.
So it was like then I had the foundational level to keep building that team. And I knew if I didn't have an inside sales team, I wouldn't hold myself accountable to making the call. So I recognized that was a weakness within me that I had to solve in order to scale.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're almost kind of creating pressure to keep yourself accountable. That's smart. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
Well, so let's talk about beyond that, right? Because I mean, it sounds like hiring an ISA, that's kind of a smart first step. A lot of agents, I think, take that first step. What's next then? What kind of positions are you looking to fill out? And just walk us a little bit through kind of like what the scaling process looked like and what positions you hired first and then next.
Well, so the ISA wasn't my first hire. My first hire was an assistant,
Okay.
and that assistant was an unlicensed assistant. If I were doing it over today, I wouldn't walk the same path that I walked, but I'll share with you how I did it and what I would suggest for people who are listening to change, right? So I
Sure.
hired an assistant and I hired with growth in mind. So when I talked to her, I said, I want you to run my team and we're going to hire quickly and you're going to help me with recruiting, you're going to help me with training, you're going to help me with onboarding, like everything. You're going to be in charge of marketing, you're in charge of, keeping track of the numbers. Like I am somebody who firmly believes, and I believe this today, and thank God I had it figured out for my first hire. The more broad the job description is when you're looking for help in the beginning, the better, because everything that you're asking for, they can evolve into, and you're able to navigate their strengths and weaknesses to move them into a role that makes sense. The problem is when you have a really narrow job description, if they don't work out for that, and you start pushing them in a different direction, they want more money or they feel you didn't set expectations correctly, right?
Hmm.
So I'm like, here, I expect the world and I want you to grow into the world. And then they feel like the opportunity is tremendous and they have more buy-in as they evolve in the role, right? So
Yeah.
that was my first hire. And then from there, I hired a buyer's agent that was also doing ISA work. And I realized very quickly she preferred to be in the field. So then I hired the ISA team. And then I scaled the whole organization kind of around them. Something that I did early on, I started hiring what I call today partner agents. So that's somebody that was really like the whole showing agent model, in my opinion, just does not work. You're taking somebody who's essentially an hourly employee, and they could be working at Subway or they could be showing homes for you. Like that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, because your customer service is going to suck. And then the message agents tell themselves is, I can't scale. I can't grow in an organization because people aren't doing it like me. And the answer is if you're going to pay somebody crap, of course they're not going to do it like you because they wouldn't be stepping up to the plate to do that job for the money that you're trying to pay. So in my opinion, that whole idea of a showing agent is just a dead model, and I actually never did it that way. Instead, I brought someone on that was truly a partner, and their role was kind of to shore up my weaknesses and most importantly, to learn how I was doing something so I could fully pass the role to them. So I did that on the buyer agent side and I did it on the list side, and I did it with two different people with two different strengths. And for the teams that I coach today, I teach them how to do that early on in their hiring process, and it helps them to be more profitable and cast a wider net when they're hiring. because the majority of people who are making a lot of money and excellent salespeople, they're not going to jump ship in a job they like where they're making good money for 100% commission. So your pool that you're fishing from, if you're offering 100% commission, is a smaller pool, and you're therefore less likely to succeed with that hire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like, yeah, and I think there's I love the strategy in particular about setting expectations for this very expansive job. Because for one, obviously, as you pointed out, that's going to allow people to grow into other positions and not be surprised by it. But it also probably raises a little bar a little bit on who's even applying for the job in the first place, right? Because you got to get people to have sort of a bigger vision for themselves. And I would assume that helps screen the applicants a little bit as well. So that's really cool.
Lazy people run.
Right. Yeah,
They're like,
exactly.
I don't want to do all that. No way. I'm like, bye.
That's great. No, I love that, the insight too about the idea of recruiting from other sales positions. I think most of what we see a lot of times with people building teams or brokerages is so often they may recruit people from other professions, but I've never heard much focus on this idea of recruiting from other sales professions in particular. So tell me more about that, because that's a great point, that these people have a lot of times a base salary, or they have an expectation of how much they can earn, and they've been doing that for years. So have you seen a lot of success with sort of almost headhunting from existing sales positions in the past?
Tremendous. Yeah, there's a few professions that I love hiring from.
Okay.
Okay. So people who are event planners,
Mm,
amazing, because they're used to grinding it out. They're used to working really weird hours. They're used to having brides, like customer service headaches and nightmares, and they tend to know how to de-escalate high emotion. I love that in a salesperson, right? And a lot of them are responsible for closing their own business as well. So if you can help plug them into a situation where they're actually making a lot more money and they're dealing with, buyers, I like those people typically for buyers. When I'm trying to hire for a listing agent, I like to hire from salespeople that have been in living rooms before. So they're selling cabinets, they're selling closets, they're selling something that they're going and sitting at the dining room table already. Because the transition to success, when you take somebody who's already been doing something and then you just spin and pivot a little bit and teach them how to change what they're presenting, they're very successful, and it's a fast path.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like this all makes a ton of sense, and it's like once you hear the mentality here, it's like why would you ever do it any other way? So I'm curious, why do you think so many brokerages and teams and leaders in this industry are not thinking this way yet?
I think that they don't have duplicatable systems for onboarding and for training people appropriately. And that's actually how we utilize video on our team.
Hmm.
I think that how you work with the buyer, if you pick someone who their background was in selling weddings and doing the event planning for weddings, and you put them into a real estate position, most team leaders are running so fast and they're still in production themselves. And so when they try and train somebody, their version of training is, hey, jump in the car. We're going to meet with Nancy, right? And then they expect the person will learn what they need to know and be able to go out and do it. And that's just not true. There's way too many details in our industry. And because a lot of team leaders figured it out themselves, they assume that someone's not the right fit for the job if they can't do that. But it's not true. If you give somebody a pathway to success, and for us, we have them actually watch a video of us doing a buyer presentation in the interview process. So before we ever hire them, they study our process, and then they come in and role play with our HR director or someone on her team. And you get to see how they'll operate in a sales environment. You learn a lot from doing that, and it screens a lot of the people who aren't putting in the effort to study up front.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, so let's talk on that a little bit more, because one of the things it sounds like you're doing here that makes a lot of sense is you're sort of treating a real estate team like a scalable corporation, right? So I mean, it reminds me a lot of the E-Myth, which is sort of a famous book for small business owners. That that's the idea, right? Is to build your company like you want to be able to remove yourself from it because it's all systemized, right? So video to me, that is, at least I've personally found, one of the most impactful places to use video. There's a lot of them, obviously. So to what degree are you using it? Kind of walk us through. I mean, where have you inserted video into this process?
everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere. I have been doing a ton of videos since the very beginning.
Okay.
And in the beginning, I look back at those videos. If you ever want to check out some hilarious content, go to the beginning of my YouTube channel. Absolutely hideous. I was like wet hair in a bun, I just like didn't show up in the way that I feel would be appropriate to show up today on video, but it's because I was fearless and I executed, right? So whether I was actually doing a video for the client where I was teaching them about how we got priority access to properties, or I was talking to a seller about how we would sell their home faster and for more money and showing them evidence of that, I was doing that consistently. And I think that's what helped us to grow so quickly. And then as I started to scale, we use video in every position for our onboarding process, but mainly when you think about an agent with a buyer or a seller, we have certain strategies that we teach them via video, and then they meet with a live person to test their knowledge on that strategy.
Interesting. Okay, so you basically are putting them through, it sounds like a training program for pretty much every single job. Tell me about so you mentioned testing people in person as sort of a takeaway from video. And I think that's one of the challenges of just providing someone with a bunch of training videos is, are they actually learning from them, or did they turn them on in the background while they played video games or something, right? So
Right.
what does that,
Mm-hmm.
what does that testing process look like, and sort of how far are you digging in with them to make sure that they learned all of this?
So that's a really good point. We don't just stick them in a room and have them watch the videos, and we actually don't even let them watch the videos from home.
Okay.
We have a group that goes through the process together. And by the way, they complain about that. Like every person you put through the program, their feedback will be, we wish we could watch these at home. And I'm like, thank you so much for your feedback. No. Like, it's not going to happen. Right. And the reason is it's too easy to check out. Like, it's your phone's a distraction. Your kids are a distraction. The food you need to cook for dinner is a distraction. Like, there's tons of distractions at home. So we would rather have a very collaborative environment where they get to watch something and then they get to meet with agents to decompress what they learned, ask questions, and go deeper into that knowledge base. And then we still test them out. So for us, no one gets leads from the team until they've gone all the way through the initial lead intake process, all the way through closing. And we do that because our quality is very important, and that's how we have thousands of 5-star reviews. Like, we take it very seriously. If somebody doesn't show up to win in that meeting where they're getting tested out, it's a 4-hour process to test someone out. Wow. And then they have a condensed version of it that's an hour with the sales manager, right? If they don't nail those things, then they're not approved for leads. And some people would say, well, Keri, like, agents aren't going to do that. Yes, they do. They do it all the time. And they do it because they want to succeed at a high level. The failure rate in our industry is absolutely insane. When you have 90% of the people who get out in a year and 95% that don't make it 5 years, it's because they don't have a roadmap to success. And I tell them, yes, it's going to be a hard first 2 weeks. You're going to be climbing up a mountain for the first 3 months, actually, and you're going to get scraped and you're going to get bruised and it's going to hurt. And if you're not willing to do that, then you shouldn't come. Not just to my business, but to anywhere in the industry, because you're setting yourself up for failure. You think it's going to be easy, right? So our onboarding process, we're very clear up front and we set the right expectations, and then we just don't have a lot of tolerance for people who try and operate outside of that. We'll give them a little bit of gray, but if they're not showing up ready to go, we don't proceed in the process.
Well, and I like the attitude too of, providing all the tools somebody needs, but then expecting them to take those tools seriously and implement them, right? So that's awesome. So one question I have for you here is, I think a lot of people, they struggle with this idea, and obviously you embraced video from day one, so this probably never crossed your mind, but a lot of them look at this stuff as sort of like, well, if I'm going to make these training videos, and I think internal video in particular is a challenge in this sense, like if I'm going to put the work in to make all these videos, I have to be getting enough return on that investment. Enough people have to watch them, and they're uncomfortable making the videos in the first place. So at what point is this worth doing? I mean, if you're a small team or a small brokerage and you just have a few agents, would you recommend that they hold off on trying to turn some of this stuff into videos, or would you see benefit from the very beginning of doing some of this?
Nick, that's such a good question. I think that's what I would call an excuse that people make, right?
Sure.
To me, if you're going to go on a Zoom appointment, record the Zoom appointment and use that, right? Use that as your training. Like, this doesn't have to be high quality, high production. Like, it's all about the content. And that's so true across social media, across, like, you see Jeff doing a video on his TikTok and he's not hiring a videographer. He's got his iPhone and he's editing it on his phone, right?
Right.
So my perspective is, if you have a computer with a camera, you should be doing it. And you should do it from day one. And, you know, making an excuse to not do videos also for your clients, that's about having an iPhone too. That's it. I teach my agents that they should be responding with video, right, to clients, because if you do a video message, imagine you met someone at an open house. When you follow up with a video, they know exactly who you are because they recognize you. They remember, oh yeah, Nick, I liked Nick. He was a nice guy. They're more likely to respond, right?
Right.
So I think every aspect of our business, we should be doing more video. And I know what gets in the way. It's not going to be good enough. Maybe I won't say the right thing. What if my hair doesn't look good? I don't have the right technology. Like, I've heard it all before, and I've even felt it in certain aspects. And then you have to choose action over anxiety, period.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be an excuse not to do anything that's hard. And this is just another one of those things you gotta confront, right? Well, so I love the idea of, you know, the internal video, using it for training, systems, all that kind of stuff. And I also like the fact that obviously when a new agent comes on board and the first thing they see is hours of video of you, they're going to say, oh, okay, well, I guess it's normal to make videos in this business. So I would assume that it sort of encourages them to take that step themselves. But what about before they join? So when you're in the actual recruiting phase and you're trying to attract somebody to the team, are there any places that you're using video in that process as well?
Yes, absolutely. So if you guys go to our website, it's just kerishull.com, KERISHULL.com. If you go to meet the team, you're going to see us like partying on a yacht and partying on a party bus, and you're going to have in those videos our agents giving their stories of, like, I was at another brokerage and this was my experience, and then I came here and here's what I did in my first year. We're weaving in testimonials to everything that we do, but we're also showing our culture through those videos. So if somebody's wondering, like, oh, am I going to come here and it's going to be a quiet office where I'm going to be able to get a lot of work done when I'm sitting at my desk and nobody's going to talk to me, and you see everybody on a yacht doing Jello shots and like, like, that's our culture. So that's what you're going to get. And we want to attract the people who are like, sign me up for that, right? So I think video is also an incredible way to attract the people that you want and to retract the people who won't fit in.
Okay. Well, so that's an interesting point, right? Is that, you know, it's obviously an attraction tool, but it can also sort of push the other direction. Have you seen benefits of that? Because I think that's something that scares a lot of people. Like, I don't want to push people away. I want I want as many potential, employees or customers as possible. Let's sell them on the idea that right.
Like, losers need not apply. Losers and lazy, right? So I say that, I'm joking, right? But I'm joking about the losers, but I'm not joking about the lazy, right? So here's the deal. I want to be with people. I want them on my team that are relatable, that are going to be really fun to be around, that are going to have a lot of energy, are going to be enthusiastic, are going to be like really hardworking and care deeply about their clients. And I can explain all of that in a video where if somebody doesn't fit into our culture and our values, they are going to run the opposite direction. Like, we kind of have a group mentality, like everybody needs to help everybody. Everybody needs to be willing to step up. That means covering for each other. That means, and some people in this business, they just want to be on their own island. They're never going to fit into my team. Why would I waste their time and mine having a conversation with them, right? The first time I ever hired my assistant, right? When I was back there in 2010 trying to figure it out, I actually cried. And I'm not like, I kind of cry a lot actually. But I cried, I shed tears, and they weren't tears of joy because I had 200 and something, like 212, I think, people apply for this one position, and I was busy. I didn't have time to review 200 resumes. So a quick technique that I learned, if you're hiring for a position that there's a lot of details, we do two things. One, in the very bottom in fine print, We tell them to put their favorite color in the headline when they respond to the ad. Now, what do you think happens? 90% of the people don't read all the way to the end. So they don't put the color. So you don't even have to open their email. You just simply delete, 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 delete. Only 10% of the applicants do you even have to look at the next step. And the next step is you ask them to record a video of why they're interested in the job and send it in. Now, if they are somebody who's going to do well and jump right into action on video and tell you, hey, these are the reasons I want the job, and they have enthusiasm, and they're excited about the job, and all of those things, boom. You're going to know that it's worth your time to meet with that person, and you can hustle to the meeting. Because right now, there's not a lot of people looking for work, right? So if you get somebody really good, you need to make it a top priority to meet with them instantly.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like, getting the video from them as well. I mean, that seems to be, I don't know if it was TikTok or LinkedIn is providing a tool for companies to start getting videos from their applicants, which I think is huge. And obviously turns it into a two-sided conversation. You get to start knowing the applicant that much better as well. So yeah, that's awesome stuff. So I know we're running a little bit low on time, so I do want to ask you a couple more things before we wrap up, though. The next question would be for somebody who is in this position. They know they should be doing video. They've been dragging their feet for a while. They know they want to use it to grow their team. What would you say to them? I mean, can you give them sort of a quick little 30-second pep talk, or what do they need to hear in order to get over that hump, you think?
I think the biggest key is fail your way to success. If you sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect opportunity to do this, another year is going to go by and everyone else is advancing so quickly. So even if you put out content you're not proud of at first, just put it out. Just know, especially on social media, video comes and goes so fast, right? That my biggest advice is just do it. Don't worry about the fact that you have makeup under your eye or whatever it is that you see that's an imperfection. I promise you other people are not going to see it the way that you do. When I first started video, you'll see on my YouTube channel, if you go check it out, I always was saying, because I was like, oh shit, what do I say next? I'm nervous. I don't know what to do, right? So when I watch the videos from back then, it's like, oh no, that was so bad. But it's not bad enough that I've ever deleted it. It's still there and it's still hideous. Because to me, it represents progress. And for anyone who hasn't started, you're going to see dramatic progress as soon as you start posting stuff. And for some of you, you can't watch it. You have to just post it because you're too self-critical, right? You're going to tell yourself, oh, I don't look good because of this, or I didn't say that right. And so, okay, as soon as you're done doing it, just post it. Because once you start doing it, it'll get easier and easier and you'll get better and better. That's the key.
Love it. Yeah, just got to get started, right? That's the key to it. Cool. Well, we do got to wrap up, Keri. I do want to thank you for being here, but most importantly, I'm sure there's a few people listening to this that are now like, I need more from Keri. This has been great. So what's the best way for them to get in touch if they want to, sign up for coaching or just get a hold of you, for instance?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram, recently on TikTok. I did a hilarious TikTok today, which will be coming soon. And it's just all my handles are at the Keri Shull, and it's KeriShull, and I do check all of my messages. All right, guys, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Keri. Really appreciate it.